but the fact is that soldiers do not carry weapons routinely unless they're at a training event, etc., or something of this nature. I'll take one more question.
What have you heard about how your soldiers react? And did they rush the shooter to knock him down before the police officers?
I've heard anecdotal evidence, but I'm not prepared to talk to that. But suffice it to say, there was a lot. I was personally on the scene shortly thereafter, and there was, as you would expect from the American soldier, did a tremendous job from what I saw. And we'll have more details in terms of this as I'm certain about what I'm talking about. Yes, sir. The last question.
I'm sorry, you just said it occurred in the 2 adjacent facilities. Are you talking about 2 rooms or 2 buildings?
No, there are 2 buildings. It's a large building, which is a Soldier Readiness Center, and then there are some smaller facilities that are adjacent to it, right by the entryway. 2 entryways really adjacent to each other.
Could you describe this community, sir? What is inside?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next press conference.
When's the next one?
It's the commanding officer at Fort Hood in Texas, General Bob Cohn, today clarifying a number of details about what happened in the shootings at Fort Hood and breaking some incredible news. Contrary to the reports that we've been hearing all day, the man who is described as the single shooter at Fort Hood is not dead. General Cohn saying that he was shot multiple times, but he was not killed. The shooter is not dead. He is in custody. The general describing him at one point as being in stable condition. He said that he is not currently speaking to investigators. He described his death as not imminent. So again, initially describing him as in stable condition, and then later giving an indication that he's not expected to die, at least soon, although he was shot multiple times. In terms of who shot the assailant, who shot Major Hassan, he described the person who is believed to have shot Major Hassan as a female first responder who was, again, initially reported to have been killed today, to have been among those who were killed in this incident. General Cohn now saying that that female first responder who is believed to have shot Major Hassan was herself wounded but survived after surgery. General Cohn today also saying that he is not ruling out terrorism as a motive or as an explanation for what happened today, but he did say that the evidence does not seem to indicate that it was an act of terrorism. He described the response to this incident, to these shootings, as one that was carried out by both military police and civilian police, because both military police and civilian police are on base. They were both involved in the response. He said that the preponderance of the casualties today were military, but there were 2 civilians among them. One of the things that's been so interesting today is that we've had very, very, very little, if any, information about who were the victims of this shooting. And while you might expect that that information would be held until next of kin could be notified, until all those immediately affected and their families could be informed, over the course of the day, none of that information has leaked. Now hearing from General Cohn that it was a preponderance of military among the casualties, but there were 2 civilians. Also new information from General Cohn about the weapons involved here. Asked by a reporter about how many of these people, how it was that so many people could have been killed by an assailant who was reportedly armed with just 2 handguns, the general did not shoot down that report. Forgive the term of art there, the turn of phrase there, but he did say that even if it was just 2 handguns involved as the weaponry here, he did describe one of the weapons as a semi-automatic weapon, which he said might explain the number of shots fired and the number of people wounded. More information from this press conference needs to be chewed over when thinking about the investigation and making some sense of this. We're joined once again by Danny Coulson, who's a former Deputy Assistant Director of the FBI. Mr. Coulson, thank you for sticking with us. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Obviously, this is a huge break in the investigation and huge news to learn that the assailant himself has survived, and even if he's not speaking to investigators yet, he will be. Presumably, that's the biggest possible break in understanding what happened today.
That can be. He may not talk to anybody. As soon as he gets counsel, I guarantee you he won't talk to anybody. But still, there's an awful lot of things that can be done. And with regard to whether or not this is terrorism or not, it's pretty close. And if we find that he was receiving direction from someone or inspiration from someone, then we could probably classify it at that point as a terrorist act. But I think we should also rejoice over the fact that this responding officer survived. That's really good news.
obviously excellent news. In terms of the investigation here, the General Cohn also said that 3 people had been detained and questioned today, and that after talking to those 3 people, they questioned over 100 people, but after detaining and questioning 3 people, they do believe it's a single shooter. In terms of the 100 people, they said, in excess of 100 people they said they spoke to at the scene, would that be trying to determine if the shooter acted alone? What would they be trying to get from those eyewitnesses?
Well, find out if there's other shooters, and whether or not that other shooter or shooters is still loose. So they're going to conduct a ton of investigation. I think he said 100 to interview people. What happened? What did you see? Did you see anybody running away? Anybody acting in consort with this man? And oftentimes in a crisis situation where people get excited, sometimes innocent people get swept up in the dragnet, and apparently that's what happened here. And they found out after conducting an investigation that they weren't involved, and they released them, and that's just the process, and that's the way these things generally play out.
In terms of the weaponry involved here, General Cohn saying that it may very well have been 2 handguns, one of them semi-automatic. He said there was no indication that these were military weapons. Still, there remains this hard-to-imagine scenario in which more than 40 people were injured before the shooter was taken down. Does that imply something about the overall level of security, the presence of first responders, the ability to intervene here and stop this incident once it started?
Yeah, what you have to understand is that if you had a high-capacity handgun, that handgun would hold between 15 and 20 rounds of ammunition that can be fired in a matter of seconds. If he had extra magazines or an extra pistol with him, he could literally fire hundreds of rounds of ammunition in a matter of minutes. So it sounds like, while it sounds extreme, really when you look at the capability of that handgun or handguns and his training, it's not unusual. And the most important thing here to remember, too, is that they were in a confined space. He didn't take these people down on the parade ground or on the golf course. He took them down in a building where there was no place for them to run. And I think we heard some mention that there may have been execution-style killings. Well, that would tell me that people tried to escape, and he trapped them and executed them, killed them. So, no, high-capacity handgun in a confined area, I'd say the first responders did pretty well to stop any more carnage than could have happened.
Danny Coulson, former FBI Deputy Assistant Director, thanks very much for helping us understand this tonight. We appreciate it, sir.